All right, everybody. Welcome back to the deep dive. So today we're going to do a deep dive into this whole controversy surrounding the Atlantic's report about Trump and his alleged remarks about Vanessa Guillén. Remember her?
Oh, yeah, absolutely. A story that just grabbed everyone's attention.
It really did.
Hmm.
And, for good reason, it touches on like military culture, media ethics, grieving families.
You got it. All of that.
It's a lot. It's a lot.
Yeah.
So if you don't remember, Vanessa Guillén's case sparked national outrage back in 2020. Her disappearance and murder at Fort Hood
Right.
exposed these serious problems with the military justice system.
Huge calls for reform at the time.
Exactly.
Yeah.
And this is important because it sets the stage for this controversy that we're
Exactly.
diving into today.
Right.
So The Atlantic, a pretty well-respected publication,
Oh, yeah,
known for their in-depth reporting.
for sure. Published an article by Jeffrey Goldberg. He's their editor-in-chief.
That's right.
And,
Morning.
okay, so let's talk about Jeffrey Goldberg for a second. He's not just some random blogger.
No.
Right. He's got a long career in journalism.
Respected.
Yeah. Yeah, foreign policy expertise. He's interviewed tons of world leaders. Obama, Trump.
Yeah. So this isn't his first rodeo.
Not at all.
And in this article, he makes some pretty serious claims,
He does.
alleging that Trump made offensive comments about Guillén's ethnicity
Uh-huh.
and even, complained about the cost of her funeral.
Yeah, that's right. And he's relying heavily on these unnamed sources, people he claims were in the room when Trump said these things.
Okay.
And he mentions having these contemporaneous notes,
Okay.
like notes taken during or right after these things happen.
Gotcha. Okay. But here's where things get really interesting.
Okay.
Trump denies everything.
Of course.
Calls the Atlantic fake news, calls Goldberg a sleazebag.
Right.
Strong words.
Yeah, it's not just Trump, though.
Right.
Mark Meadows, his former chief of staff,
Yeah.
also publicly denied these claims, saying Trump never said any of this.
Okay, so you have Trump, you have Meadows, and then you have the Guillén family
Right.
coming out in support of Trump.
Right. Completely dismissing the Atlantic's report.
Saying it's false.
Mhm.
And they even appeared with Trump at a rally in Austin, Texas.
Which is really interesting
Right.
because at that rally, Trump used it as a platform to just attack the Atlantic
Oh, yeah.
and other media outlets,
He did.
saying they're a threat to democracy.
He even took aim at John Kelly.
His former White House chief of staff,
Right.
who had given some not-so-great interviews
Pretty critical.
to the Atlantic and the New York Times.
Mm-hmm.
So it's just fascinating how this story brings all these different things together.
It's a lot. It's conflicting accounts, anonymous sources, a grieving family, and a former president who just loves confrontation.
Exactly. So how do we make sense of all this?
That's what we're here to do.
That's the goal.
We're going to break it all down, analyze the evidence,
Yeah.
and help you navigate this whole messy story.
Sounds good.
All right,
Yeah.
let's get into it.
Let's do it. Okay, so let's get into the heart of this whole thing. You've got the Atlantic with their reputation standing by their story, but they're facing pushback.
Oh, yeah, for sure. I mean, it's not just Trump calling names. You have Meadows denying everything, and then the Guillén family supporting Trump's side. It's a lot.
It is, and that's where it gets kind of tricky. How do you even figure out,
As a listener,
yeah,
what to believe.
what are we looking for here? What are the key things?
Right. So first, those anonymous sources.
Okay.
Goldberg says he talked to people who were there when Trump allegedly made these comments, but he's not saying who they are.
So we just take his word for it.
Well, not exactly. I mean, anonymous sources can be really important in journalism,
Yeah.
especially when you're dealing with sensitive info or whistleblowers.
Right. People who could get in trouble.
Exactly. But
It makes sense, but how do we know these sources are reliable? What if they just don't like Trump or something?
yeah, that's a valid concern. And that's why relying only on anonymous sources can be a problem. It's always better to have people willing to go on the record,
Okay.
but that's not always an option. So be careful with the anonymous sources. Got it. What else are we looking at?
Corroboration.
Back up.
Right. Has anyone else been able to confirm this?
Good point.
Any other news outlets? More evidence.
Exactly.
As far as I know, nothing. No other major news organization has verified the Atlantic's claims about Trump's comments about Vanessa Guillén.
Right. And that's something to consider.
Yeah.
Doesn't mean they're wrong,
Right.
but it does kind of raise a red flag.
Okay.
If there were more sources or evidence from other places, it would make the story stronger.
Okay. So we've got anonymous sources. Lack of corroboration. What about the Guillén family?
Yeah.
They seem to believe Trump.
They do.
Yeah.
And their perspective is super important. But we also have to think about the fact that they're grieving.
Well,
they may be looking for support
right.
and comfort.
And Trump has been very public about supporting them.
He has. And he's even used this whole thing to attack his opponents.
It's a lot.
It is. It's complex.
Yeah.
It's important to think about everyone's motivations and biases. So we're left with a lot of questions. No easy answers.
That's right.
How do we even handle this?
Well, I think the first step is just acknowledging that there are different sides to this and that the truth might be hard to find.
So we're not just supposed to believe whatever one side says.
No, not at all. It's about thinking critically, questioning things, and looking at the evidence.
So what can we as listeners do to be, smarter about the information we take in, especially with all this conflicting stuff?
One thing is to diversify where you get your news from.
Right.
Don't just rely on one news outlet or website. Try to get a range of viewpoints, even ones you might not agree with.
Because if you only hear one side, you're missing out on important information.
Right.
Like different ways of looking at things.
Exactly. It's like looking at a painting with one eye closed.
Right. You're not getting the full picture.
You're only getting a piece of it.
And in this case, it's a story with big implications.
Yeah.
We're talking about the military, how a president acts, and how the media shapes these stories.
It really shows us how hard it is to figure out the truth these days.
It does.
We have to be careful, think critically, and be willing to talk about these things, even when it's tough.
So the next time you see a story like this, take a step back, ask some questions, and don't be afraid to challenge what you think you know.
I like that. The truth is out there, but it takes effort. You got to really think about things.
Yeah, you got to be willing to look at the messy parts too.
Absolutely.
Well, on that note, that wraps up our deep dive into this controversy.
Yeah, it was a good one.
It was a lot. But thanks for breaking it down with us. Don't forget to hit that like button, subscribe to our channel, and leave a comment below with your thoughts. We always love to hear from you.